Hi, and welcome back to Pensive Podcast. I'm so excited for season 2 of the podcast. It's been a while since I've done this, but I'm ready to get back into it. First, some introductions. So I'm Chloé. I'm the founder of Pensive. I make books. I run events and workshops all around mindfulness, productivity, and relaxation. I'm the creator of the NPR method, which is something I created to help others with their productivity in a more mindful way. So if you're interested in that, please have a look at the website, and there's a video on our YouTube channel about that as well. We have a guest on today's podcast. Her name is Ecre. I'll do a short introduction, then she can correct me about all the things I got wrong. So Ecre is a translator in training, I guess, or translator straight up.
I guess they call it an emerging translator.
Emerging translator. Ecre is an emerging translator. She also facilitates poetry workshops. She works in a poetry center. And we also worked with each other on my magazine, The Comm, which was a Japanese street fashion magazine. And she was head of editorial. And we actually met each other at uni. Yay!
Yay!
So that's how we know each other. But the reason I invited Ecre on the podcast is because I think she has an insight into publishing and translation and poetry that maybe not everyone has an insight into. It's kind of like the understated arts, you know?
The art of making it happen.
The art of making it happen. The literature arts, all these kind of things. See, I don't have the words because I generally don't know. This is what we're here to find out. So that's enough of my weird intro. Can you introduce yourself?
I will try. My name is Ecre, and I am a translator from Japanese to English. That's how I met Chloé. We both studied Japanese together at university. And I'm also the marketing manager of the Poetry Translation Center, which is an arts organization in the UK that publishes poetry from outside of Europe in translation. And I also do fundraising and reporting at a London community center.
And
what else do I do? I run a poetry group.
And did you talk about the emerging the mentorship?
Oh, the mentorship.
Yeah.
I guess it falls under
You have to talk about all of it.
Okay, there's so much happening. Honestly, there's so much happening.
Okay, that's why we got to start at the beginning. So I think where I want to start, so everyone just gets to know a bit about your background and how you got to what you're doing now. So I think I know everyone talks about being a creative and stuff, but there's so many avenues and there's so many ways into the creative industry. And I think it's quite interesting that you started with Japanese and translation, essentially, because so our BA is in Japanese, and that doesn't just include translation. That's learning about the language and the culture and
politics,
history, all that kind of stuff, which I have completely forgotten, but it's okay because it was a long time ago. It was 2013.
I keep the papers on my computer, so I know they're there. So if I were to read them again, maybe I'd be a scholar again.
Once again, an academic. We say with our multiple degrees between us, I'm not an academic. It's fine.
Not for me.
No, absolutely not. Moved on from that. So I think it's super interesting that you started in translation and you've moved on to other things. So I guess maybe we should start with the MA in translation, right? So from doing a BA in Japanese and then you did an MA in translation, was that just specifically Japanese translation or?
I think what happened was I did the undergrad. I mean, to be fair, I probably could go a little bit before then. The reason I did Japanese in the first place was because I did a dual degree. We did the Japanese part together, but I did linguistics as well. And the reason I initially studied Japanese was because I was studying linguistics and I wanted to study a language that was loosely under the same language family as Turkish, which is my heritage language. And then I did the degree and I found out they're not close enough together to be worth researching. But that's what the thought initially.
Yeah.
And I was always interested in the publishing industry. So I thought, okay, when I was going to events, which is something I'll come back to, as one of the things I always encourage people to do, always go to different events happening in your city. But I would go to a lot of publishing events during my A-levels, and I noticed that it seemed a lot of the people working there were English literature graduates. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to study something vocational like dentistry or law or something like that.
Ew.
Like, ew. So it doesn't really matter what I studied if I knew I was kind of aiming for an office job. So I thought, why don't I do something that's still language related, but a little bit different? And also gave me like an avenue to go down an academic route if I wanted to. Like I think the point is like whenever I went into the decisions that I've made, I've always kept like doors open for different things. I always kind of tried to focus it generally on things that I thought I'd enjoy. I knew that it would still be a way to get into publishing if I studied like linguistics. So I thought, okay, I'll just do that. And then what happened was I got really into linguistics, into phonology. And by my final year, I was like, yes, I'm ready to do a PhD. I was like talking to my supervisor. She was like, yeah, like I'll do it with you. I'll be your supervisor for a PhD. You just need to do a master's. So I was like, okay, I'll find a scholarship. I'll do a master's. Yeah. And that's why I decided to do translation. Again, I gave myself a back door. I was like, okay, if I decide that I'm not going to commit to a 3+ year PhD, at least if I did an MA in translation, I'll have graduated with a freelanceable skill.
Right. Okay.
So it was very practical for me. And then I did the degree, and like the first 1 month into it, I got involved in the comm.
Yeah. And
then like 1 month after that, I found out that there was an opportunity to do like a dual degree program where you'd finish the SOAS. SOAS is the school we went to. We'd finished the MA program in 1 year. And then we had the opportunity to transfer that whole year to a Japanese university. Yeah. Because normally those are 2-year programs. So then you do a year in London, a year in Tokyo, and then you'd graduate with 2 degrees. So when the magazine, like when the comm started really taking off, and it did really quickly, I was like, okay. Oh, and also the PhD supervisor retired.
Okay.
She retired like 1 year after she said she'd be my supervisor. Oh. So I was like, great. Specifically, so the type of phonology I was doing, she invented the framework. Like she's the only person who could
For
do
people who don't know, like me, what is phonology?
Oh, okay. Phonology is like the science behind sounds.
Oh, I see.
So it's like you can draw. It's kind of so linguistics is the science of language, and you can you can.
You're a woman in STEM.
Oh my God! Wait, am I?
Get out! This is humanities only.
I mean, linguistics can go STEMmy. Like there was definitely a moment where maybe I should have gone into like AI and like language.
Absolutely not.
Machine learning. I'm so glad I didn't.
No. I don't care if people say it's the future. I don't want any part of it.
Yeah, when I saw that option, I was like, nah, not for me.
I wanted to go back because several thoughts have been coming up while you've been chatting. There's so many threads. My first thought was, I can't believe you planned that far ahead at A-levels and you're going to publishing events. And keeping career options open. Because for me, when I chose Japanese, I was like, I like fashion and I like cute stuff and I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to do Japanese.
I don't think I was that different. Like, for me, I think one thing I feel fortunate about when I look back is that I always knew from like the age of 5 that I wanted to be a writer. So every decision I made in comparison to that was always going to be pale.
Right.
So nothing I studied at university, nothing was life or death about it. I knew that I wasn't truly going to love it because I already knew the thing that I loved.
Right.
But that's why I always had to approach university in a more calculated way. Like my challenge was like, okay, what do I do that is creative, that is sensible, that will actually serve me and help me build the life that I want to build. And I wasn't sure about any of those things. I just knew that I wanted to keep an academic option open.
Right. Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to have an office job type of job. So it didn't really matter what I studied. It took me a long way. I think a lot of the challenges I've faced and the way I've overcome them has always been in the shape of like not knowing what the shape of the mountain is that I'm supposed to climb. Because I think most people are willing to work really hard. Yeah. But you don't know what the challenge actually is. You don't know the lay of the land. So a lot of it has just been me putting myself in a position where I can figure out the lay of the land and then I can climb.
That's insane that you decided to do that with Japanese though. It was like
Yeah, because I thought like, I think I remember thinking, I thought this was like a super big brain moment. I was like, yeah, like who speaks Turkish and Japanese?
Yeah,
Nobody.
nobody.
So I'll just do that. And then I'll study the linguistic crossover between Japanese and Turkish. And then because it's so niche, I'll get funded for it, surely.
Sure. I mean,
and like, and then it kind of came to it and I was like, nah, funding, no. And also like, they're not similar enough.
Oh, well.
I mean, Japanese, like knowing Turkish has helped my Japanese immensely.
Yeah.
But like not in a way where it's research.
Yeah, I think it's just like if you know how languages work.
Yeah.
Just, like even French, like, I'm not going to say I'm fluent in French. I should be, but I'm not. But just knowing French helped me with Spanish. And then knowing that just like I can kind of have a good overview of general romance, like European language. Yeah. Well, not like Hungarian or whatever, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're different language families.
Yeah. That kind of helped me with Japanese. I was like, if I can do French, if I can do Spanish, like the general, not like anything to do grammatically, like just the idea that, okay, I can learn a language. Like that part of my brain is active. So yeah, I think, like you said, it's not that Turkish and Japanese are like linguistically similar. It's just you have the capacity to understand and know language. I know you're talking about writing, or we're talking about writing and translation. Maybe I'm talking about them two separately, but inherently it just comes down to like love of language and words and stuff. Like, right? Is that something that you considered, or is it just like a subconscious kind of thing?
I think, I don't know. Yeah, I've really been thinking about this one as well, because writing has been important for me for such a long time. And when I'm translating and I'm genuinely like in the thick of it, I always, because when you show up to something, it's you're when you're doing something live, like it's whatever you are that comes out. And you can improve it when you edit it. But that first draft, it's whatever you actually are. Having such an extensive writing background has helped me immensely while translating. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's only been very recently that I've been thinking like, maybe writing only needs to be the thing that got me so far in translation and made me a better translator. I'm not sure yet, but I think writing for me has always been a way to actually access the depth that I'm capable of. Because I can't, God knows I can't do that like in speech or like in my day-to-day life. Like I've always found that like when you write a book, which is such a difficult and unpleasant thing to do. It's just hard. I love having written. But actually writing, no. It's hate writing.
The end thing, like I did that.
I did that.
When you're doing, you're like, I hate this.
Yeah, I have a spreadsheet of like all the things that I've written and like the word counts. But the best part of writing is filling in the spreadsheet.
Like
but the actual like button chair, hands on keyboard, no. But the thing with writing is what I found was like I'd have to get to like 3/4 of the way in, right as you're writing like the heart of the book, the climax of the novel, and it's fiction, so it's like through all these different metaphors and these characters who are nothing like you, or maybe they are a bit like you. You finally, because as a teen, when I had the time, I used to write a novel every year, and so what would happen is that I would be writing about the big question, the big existential question I had that year. And I'd have been thinking about it for a really, really long time, but I could only actually find the answer when I got like all the way to the heart of that book that year.
So you've gone on the journey like with them, essentially.
Yeah, essentially. And that's like the only way I can actually dig deep and figure out the answer to what I'm trying to find. And then it was funny because like once I did that and then I wrapped up the book, I was like, that's fine. We don't need to publish that. I've learned.
Yeah, but not everything needs to be showcased for an audience.
I think it's important to learn how to write for yourself first. Like my writing journey has definitely been like this kind of graph of learning how to be really, really, really introspective. And then through all of the other career experiences I've had, that's when I've kind of really gotten into outwardly expressing that creativity. And that creativity naturally is like translated through different media.
Yeah.
That's why I've always been drawn to translation, because I feel like I'm always translating.
That's perfect, because my next thread of thought was just to go back to your translation, and like in an academic sense, I guess it's quite rigorous and structured. And here you're talking about like the act of writing opening you up to be more creative and finding something deeper within yourself. And I'm just wondering, like, because I know for me, when I study something academically, it kind of takes away the the magic of it and the freeness and like the ability to just express. I know in translation, like you're like, this is something someone else has written, but I think all translators know that their voice comes through. So do you think that having studied it in an academic sense, you sort of had to find your voice through that, or you lost your voice? Like, how do you think the actual academic part of translation like helped you?
It's a weird one. I mean, it was very important to me back in the day not to study writing, creative writing at university, precisely because I was worried about that. And at that point, I had already written so much that I was like, I don't need this. Like, not that I was writing well. I probably would have learned a lot. But I was really worried about like losing the love of it. But with translation, and I think this is just a wider thing about, you know, do you need a degree to get into translation? I don't think you do. But I had to have done that to be here now. Like, it's not, for me, it wasn't necessarily about the instruction. The instruction was great and it was really useful, but it was about, it's about like what those things led to, the people you meet. It's always useful to hear new ideas, but there are other ways to learn new ideas. I remember I was always like trying to get my cohort to go to a lot of different literary translation events. Being in that degree was like the reason I joined the comm, because I was like sitting at a table overhearing a conversation that I like butt my nose in, and I was like, guys, wait, you could do it like this, or we could do it like that.
You
were on the phone to somebody else.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, where was I when this was happening? Like, was I still in England?
No, you were in Japan.
I was in Japan. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, you were in Japan and you were like on the phone with somebody, and I overheard at the other table at lunch. So and I was like, no. That's not how you do a magazine.
Right. You just nosed your way into my...
I did.
That's fine.
I hired myself.
That's how it goes, honestly. So maybe we should talk about the comm then, because like that does like... I talk about it as like a Japanese fashion, subculture thing. But one of the most important parts of it was that it was multilingual. So the reason for that was that I and many of my friends, when I was in Japan, like we were featured in all these like magazines and stuff. And a lot of the time, like, well, 99.999% of the time, the English language magazines did not ask the people they were writing about, like, about their style or about themselves. They would just literally just make stuff up and just be like, this person is wearing this style. And then I'd ask my friend like, oh, did you see you were in this article and they said you were wearing this? They were like, what? Because they don't have access to this, because it's not in their language. It's not on their radar at all. So I thought, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to be a representative of this community, they have to be able to read it and fact check me. And they did, like, I put my hands up. I made some mistakes. Like, they fact checked us. But that's the point. I'm not going to put out anything that's incorrect or, misinformation. So
the point is to facilitate a conversation.
The point is to facilitate a conversation. And because of that, we had so many people from like all over the world, like, read this magazine. It was crazy. It was mental. Like, on Google Analytics, when you scroll through and you can see the countries, I'm like, it's everywhere, dude. It's everywhere.
Know. That was the best part.
It's crazy. For the magazine, it was in English, Japanese, French, German, Spanish, and Italian.
Yes.
Yeah. And I didn't have a plan of like which languages. I think people just kind of invited themselves. I was like, yeah, sure, if you want to translate.
Yeah.
But saying all of this, you weren't involved in the translation part of it.
I actually wasn't. No, I was involved in the editorial.
You're a head of editorial, so all of the articles and stuff, which again it's the writing. But I guess it's still it's still part of what you were doing, because I forgot at the same time you're doing your MA in translation, right? While doing the comm. So it's still that mix of like writing and language with a little fashion flair. But yeah, was there any part of, I guess, the comm that helped you, or something you learned from that specifically that like carried through to your like journey today?
Definitely. I think the comm was a wonderful opportunity among many things. Like, one of the things that it really taught me more generally was just this wider appreciation for art and community, and like what it means when you organize people to come together and like celebrate like culture. Obviously the comm was great and you learned a lot, and just the fact that it's like, I don't know, that it feels like there's so many avenues for you, not just like
writing, there's marketing, translation, like there's just so many things that you've picked up over time, and it's just like, where's she going to go next? What I wanted to ask, maybe like going back to the comm a little as well, and also just to do with all your work that you're doing now, is that yes, the articles were translated into like Japanese, Italian, French, whatever, but most of the readership was in English, and most of the work that we did with the comm and that you're doing now is about helping people whose main language is like English, people, Anglophones, Americans, Canadians, British, Aussies, all of that, sort of bringing in like international voices, because I think we are so culturally dominant. Like, but why? Because there's just so much out there, and I think that was such a big thing for the comm as well.
It's like, the decentring of English.
Yeah,
that's like the heart of like
that's such a so-ass thing. It's like
I know,
the decolonization.
We say that at the Poetry Translation Center a lot. We have to decenter the English. Like, so that's always in my mind. That phrase.
Yeah, we do have to decenter the English from everything. I was wondering if this is something then or now, if that's something you thought about consciously. It's like literally like decentering English, or like making sure that there's like a diverse voice and international voice in what you're doing.
Yeah, like that's basically like why I'm interested in translation in the first place. Like going to all those publishing events, like during my uni years and my youth, I kept seeing this thing coming up where everybody was going on and on and on about like diverse voices. We need more diverse voices. Like there's a huge diversity problem in publishing, and I didn't really understand what that meant exactly. And then like you hear, I remember the first time I heard the shocking statistic that there's like, of the entire English language UK book market, 3% of it is translated fiction.
Oh my God.
3. And I was like, why? And because there's countries like France, for example, where it's super normal to read fiction in translation. And I found out through one of the events that like there was a UK publisher who also spoke in French, and he acquired a lot of his books because like a lot of his books from like Japan or Korea, because he was reading them in French. Yeah. Because they always get published and translated into French. And then he was picking them up in English because there was like at the time, this was like 10 years ago, like there was less movement and knowledge of like what's happening in Japan and what to publish in Japan. So I published from Japanese. And it kind of got me thinking like, okay, what do I want my contribution to be? I decided like, I just want to see a more empathetic world. For me, that also means publishing for children and kind of showing them something better than what I saw growing up. That just felt so much more interesting to me because I've lived in different countries growing up. Like, I couldn't imagine why you would only want to listen to one voice or one type of voice or one general popular experience. Like, I remember the first books I used to write, they would all be like American white girls because I thought those were the only girls I got published. Like, books about those kinds of girls were the kinds of books I got published. I thought I had to change myself for that. So now I'm like, okay, why don't I just change the industry then?
Just change the
like I don't like the playground. I'll just change the playground. And then I'll write the books that I want to write, sure. But like the problem is not the books that I'm writing or how courageous I feel. The problem is what's getting published. And I think I kind of realized like I'd have a lot more power as like somebody working in publishing, helping those voices get through the door. Like if one individual is the gatekeeper and they help like 100 people get through, that's 100 people's worth of impact. Or I could be the person doing the translating and doing all of that. So I think that it was important for me to organize my life in a way that strategically felt like it aligned with my values. So that's kind of the main reason I really, really pursued publishing when it got down to it. And I was doing like translation before as well. Before the emerging translators mentorship at the National Center for Writing, which I am doing right now. I wasn't sure if actually doing literary translation was viable for me because it's really hard to break into. Like one of the only ways to really break into it is by doing these mentorships. And like there's this one at the National Center for Writing, which is in the UK. It's open globally. And then there's the one in America by ALTA, the American Literary Translators Association. They do a very similar mentorship scheme. Again, open globally. And you have like, one person is picked per language every year. And so you get 2 chances every year and that's it.
I think On the topic of the, because this is like such a massive thing.
Yeah.
I think I want to start at the beginning so everyone's like caught up with what exactly like your journey with this is and what exactly it is. So on the topic of translation specifically, I know we've talked about the comm and a bit of like translation here and there, but I think the biggest thing for you recently, like you said, is this emerging translators mentorship. Is that the right words?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you talk us through, because I wasn't aware of it and I'm sure most people aren't unless you're like in it, you know, like in translation and publishing, etc. So can you talk us through like what it means, like what the significance of it is and how you became a mentee?
So the Emerging Translators Mentorship started out by, I believe it was Daniel Hahn, who's a translator, very like well-known translator in the space. And he, it was originally at the BCLT, which is the British Centre for Literary Translation. It's been running for like, I think over 10 years. And there would be like 10 languages, I think. And the idea was that you would pair an emerging translator, a so-called emerging translator, with an experienced mentor. And they would kind of help like mentor you over 6 months and kind of give you a lot of the tools you need and a lot of the tricks of the trade. And then it would culminate at the London Book Fair mid-March, and where you'd pitch the projects that you're working on to editors and then hopefully get your first contract and start your translation career, literary translation career. The point of it really is to help people get into it, because a lot of the translators who'd been doing it for a long time, like Danny, I think he probably knew that it's really hard to get into. A lot of it involves like directly pitching to editors. You have to know the editors, and you have to, it's not that it's a minefield, but there's so many steps to getting a book into English. And the way that the industry is kind of set up at the moment, translators act essentially as agents.
Right, yeah.
They represent like the author from the source language. They find the books and they read in that market, and then they do all the admin of like getting people in touch to actually sell the rights.
Yeah.
And then hopefully be hired to translate the full book. There's so many things, little fiddly things to learn.
Yeah, but also while you're saying that, I feel like it was a perfect storm for you, because you're talking about like the rights and the marketing of books, which is what you did at the comm.
Yeah, I did a lot of rights at the comm. That's right, yeah.
And learning about marketing and stuff. So I feel like all the ingredients were there.
Yeah, that's very true for me, definitely. I really feel like I've had so many different, not quite, like I've had so many different experiences, but they've always taught me the thing I needed for the next step.
Yeah.
And I'm like racking my brain, like, what is this big brain thing that I was apparently capable of doing? And can I keep doing it? I don't know. I think the thing is I just kept an open mind.
Yeah.
And just tried lots of different things. Like I had never been involved in fashion before I came to the comm. But like, and I just studied and I did my best and I spoke to people and kept in conversation with people. But you just got to have a willingness to learn, I think, because that can lead to lots of different places.
Yeah.
But with the mentorship specifically, I felt like it had come to a point where I genuinely done my homework. I'd done everything I could on my own. And at that point, I just had very, very specific questions and very, very specific challenges that I was dealing with. And I knew I just needed like a one-to-one. But that doesn't mean that it's for people who have like figured everything else out, done their homework. That's not the only kind of person that a mentorship is for. It depends on the kind of case you make when you apply, and also it depends on what the mentor is capable of providing, because it's going to vary from mentor to mentor.
I think as well we just need to bring up the fact that this kind of opportunity is very rare to have.
Yeah.
Like you said, people don't know how to break into translation, and so these kind of opportunities, everyone wants to apply, and the fact that only 10 people are selected.
Yeah,
and it's worldwide. So it is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. It's really hard. I think the thing with any creative career, though, is you have to be really, really diligent about applying for things and then picking yourself up straight away when you get rejected. And you will be rejected.
Yeah.
Like I'd applied for these programs, both the American one and the UK one, for years. Absolutely years. I applied to the BCLT summer school for years, a lot of different competitions for years. I had this like yearly schedule of things I applied to. And it's funny because the job that I do at the community center, which is fundraising, when you do do fundraising and you apply to these big trusts and foundations for funding, you write like these applications, you make a case with data. That skill is what taught me to write good applications.
Right, yeah.
So like, I know for a fact that the application I wrote to Polly possibly is the best thing I've ever written.
This is Polly Barton, by the way.
Polly Barton, my mentor.
Yeah.
Who you all know as the translator of Butter, Waterstone's Book of the Year.
Amazing.
I had asked Polly, like, why did you pick me? And she was like, yeah, I could have gone with like 8 or 9 other people, but I went with you because the specific list of like challenges that I had, the specific like journey that I wanted to go on of learning was one that she hadn't overseen before as a mentor. Like she hadn't had to support those specific sets of challenges before. So she found that interesting, so she picked me. And like, you can't predict that.
Yeah.
The point is that like, you never know why people get picked for things. It's not just because there's loads of people who are ready for something like this. And the other, like, because the other important thing with the mentorship is that everybody in the UK and Anglophone industry know about these mentorships and they look out for them because they're looking for new talent to work with those language pairs. So it's like a big stamp of approval. And that's like one of the big appeals of the program.
Right.
So I think what always gets me is like, there are so many people who are deserving of opportunities like this, but there's so few. When I got the offer, I literally spent the next month like extremely depressed because I was like, this isn't fair. Like I probably know people who have applied and they didn't get it. And it just, I don't know. It's just.
But it's one of those things like, yes, you have the skill. Yes, you have the talent. Yes, you've been on the journey. But at the end of the day, it was up to like one person. They were like, oh, I've never done this before.
Yeah.
And that's why
a lot of it's just down to luck.
But it doesn't take away from the fact that you were ready and you have the skill.
That's true. I think that's the only thing you can do, really. Like trying your hardest to be ready because those opportunities do come. And when they come, you got to be in a position to actually grab hold of them.
So it makes it feel like, well, the same with a lot of industries. It's like there are hugely talented people out there, but they just won't get the opportunity because of bad luck or something.
Bad luck. I mean, there's also obviously a lot to be said about like privilege and like exposure to like even knowledge. Like I feel like I spent the past 15 years essentially just plotting out the field.
I mean,
to like
you've been talking about since like A-level, like I wanted to do this. And
I essentially like I feel like I spent like the last 15 years like trying to figure out what the actual challenge was. And like I could observe people at these events speaking this language I didn't understand. They had this savviness that I didn't understand. And a lot of it's not just that they're in this industry, like there's classism that comes into it as well. There's like being the children of immigrants and a lot of different things that I just don't understand. And I feel like it's taken me such a long time just to understand like the shape of the mountain that I keep coming back to. What is the mountain that I
genuinely don't know what the mountain is. Like,
it's just I don't even know either.
It's the place to climb to get where you need to be. Like, wait, is the goal to be at the top of the mountain?
That's a deep question.
So no, like genuinely, I'm trying to understand this metaphorical mountain.
I guess, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't have to be up. It could be like across. I guess the point is
through the middle, you carve a tunnel.
Maybe that's the way. Maybe that's where I'm going. Going wrong. Like, maybe that is the way.
Up and around seems like a long way to go. I just go.
See, maybe like it looked to me like that was the only way, and then everybody else was actually just going like this. Everybody else getting a taxi.
There's many ways around this mountain.
Yeah. The challenge is to learn the way.
You got to get your grapple hook and just get in there. So obviously you're translating from Japanese to English, but your native language is English. Or is it Turkish?
It's English. Yeah, my Turkish is not that good.
Okay. But I think a lot of people would be like, oh, hey, like your heritage is Turkish. Why did you not focus on Turkish? Because there's a lot of translators who just translate from their like native language or heritage language. So I think it's quite fun and unusual that
you're probably right.
that you're translating from Japanese. I think that's just like my opinion or a comment rather than a question. But I don't know if I have anything to say.
I mean, I think it is interesting. I think people have a lot of different like approaches to translation and an understanding or a belief on who should translate or who it makes sense to translate. Personally, I see translation as a pretty scholarly endeavor. And I like a lot of it is just sitting down and doing so much research and work. And because I have the tools through my studies to like be able to get into like the politics and the history and the culture of the language I'm translating from. That feels like a more comfortable thing to do. Whereas with my own language, I don't have that background.
Okay.
And I'm not saying you have to have that background, but because
it helps.
it helps for me, and just the way that I work and the way that I translate, the tools that I and the knowledge that I reach for when I'm working, speaks to those skills rather than like an understanding I might have of the language growing up.
That's so true. Yeah,
like I see it as quite, I don't know, there's something more separate about it for me.
Yeah.
Like I think it's important. And as well, like I'm not really thinking, like my vision for the industry, I'm not really thinking of like, oh, I wish there were more Japanese books in translation. I wish there were more Turkish books in translation. I'm thinking like, oh, I wish the world was more empathetic. Like, I wish we were all speaking to each other a lot more. So I'm more interested in just being a part of getting more of that happening, no matter how that is, because I think it's a huge win whichever languages ever get translated into English. The point is that we're like constantly talking to each other, and we're reading from like different places.
I mean, we've had this conversation previously, and I just cannot get over this, is the fact that translators act as like marketers. They pitch, they have to like read, obviously they have to read the book, they have to read, but they have to have such a deeper understanding and be able to sell it to someone. And it's not, because the amount of times when I say I have a Japanese degree, and someone's like, why don't you become a translator? Listen, bro, like I can speak Japanese to like, it should be N2 at this point. It should be. But I'm not going to say it is.
I feel that.
It's like N.2.5.
N somewhere up there.
N,
depending on the day.
N understands what's going on.
Yeah.
But it doesn't allow me the capacity to translate. Like it just doesn't, you know? And even if I could translate, it doesn't mean that I could be a translator, because knowing what I know now with the publishing industry, which we're going to talk about, it doesn't mean that I can be a translator, because translation, along with so many jobs now, it just encompasses so many other things that is not just the act of a book is hon, you know, like you know, it's not just translating. So,
but actually, you know, you say that, but actually, I think you'd be a really good translator, because first of all, translation takes advantage of the academic skills, the reading and the writing. I personally am married to a dictionary. You'd be a great translator because you're very creative, and like the act of translation, I see it as an act of recreation, rebirthing, if you will.
Rebirthing.
Yes, rebirthing.
Okay.
You got to make it breathe. You got to make it sing on the page. You have to think about the audience. The tricky thing is when like the audience in Japan is not the same as the audience in the UK.
Oh no,
because it completely depends on the whims of the editor. If the editor is like, no, this adult, it's YA. Yeah, we'll just change the tone.
Yeah,
you just totally transform it.
Yeah. So I wanted to go back to like what you've learned about being a translator and what you've told me, because it's wild, just to do with the publishing industry.
Yeah.
Because my impression, like I've said, is translator, translate book.
Yeah.
In fact, it is not. Translator, find book through market, because translator does a lot of research, reads multiple books, decides this book would suit English language market, pitch to someone.
Yeah, and you have to know who to pitch it to.
And know who pitch to.
Yeah, and you have to know what they all like.
Know what they like.
Yeah.
Have some kind of marketing skill. Even before translating, have back and forth.
It's a lot of emails.
And have the author on board with all of this somehow.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing that I picked up is that when you think about the landscape of translated fiction, literature, whatever, now I'm thinking the person who picked this wasn't like a publisher or whatever. It was a translator. Like so all the things in Waterstones and foils, all the Japanese, like, because Japanese fiction is like super trendy right now. So I'm like, are these Japanese translators? They're kind of dictating to English speakers what they think either we want to read or what they
not
like?
fully. No, not quite. So what the kind of
I don't know, but I just thought it was so interesting that the translator has that much impact on what appears in Waterstones.
So that kind of dynamic that I've described, that is more common. That's basically the emerging translator's grind. So that way is like one of the ways it works, but it's not the only way.
Okay.
There's also this whole thing around scouting. So a lot of like UK publishers, they're like, okay, people, there's an appetite for Japanese literature. Cool. So they will have translators or like aspiring translators, people in the know who like read in English and Japanese, and they'll ask them to like look around at different projects, like find out different projects. They might also make use of agencies in Japan who specifically do this. Like they look around at the markets. And then they'll kind of do a synopsis, like a pitch pack, a synopsis and a sample and some comp titles. So comp titles are like titles that are similar in the market to this book. Oh, this book is like the Japanese Twilight, that kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Like this is like this, but it's kind of like that. They'll have a lot of those different pitch packs ready, and they'll be like reading them, and then they might decide. But so it's really the editors who decide. But the thing is, the way publishing works is that a lot of editors are very risk averse. Like that's why you'll know this from experience. When Twilight came out, there was like vampire romance books for like the next decade. When Hunger Games came out, there was like, okay, sci-fi powerful girl book coming out. Like publishing, like if something works, they want more. They want more of the same thing. And that's why I think you do see a lot of like similar kinds of stories like emerge, like especially from Japanese literature. I
mean, yeah, obviously like it wouldn't solely be a translator deciding, and editors and agencies, etc., have their input in it and like the final say essentially. But I'm still so intrigued at the fact that there is a lot to do with the taste of the translator. Because from what I understand as well, translators, not only do they have their own voice, they have their own specialty on what they like to translate. So that will also have an impact on the wider market, and still at the consumer end, we're just like, just receive.
You know what? This is a really good moment to talk about like the fact that we need to address like the lack of Beyoncés in translation.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Basically, I think it was last year or the year before I think it was the Manchester Translation keynote. I really hope I got that right. But there was like this keynote that Anton Her was doing. He's a Korean translator. He's very famous. Any translators watching this would like know who he is. But he was doing these slides. He was giving a really good presentation, and I was like, oh my gosh, amazing, wow! And also I'm like such a big fan. Like I'm hanging on to every word. And then he presses his slideshow button thing, and then a bullet point comes up, and he's like, and it just says, "I am the Beyoncé of translation."
That's amazing.
And I was like, I mean, I know you are, but explain, what do you mean? And then what he meant was like triple threat. So like, because he's also a published author. He like actually publishes his own like fiction. And he's a translator. So I don't remember the third thing, but I believe that there's like lots of things that could have been the third thing.
He can sing.
He could do anything. I'd believe anything for the third thing from him. Like he's amazing. But I've been thinking about this for a while, which is that there has often been a trend of in the past of translators not being very visible.
Yeah.
Even though like
you do have such an impact.
You have such a huge impact
on what we're reading.
And like before like the mentorship, before I ever met Polly, like I would specifically seek her out her books because I liked her taste.
Right.
And like, you know, the books that she was translating, they're not like similar to one another. But there was something about it that was pulling me in, and that was her.
Yeah.
Like she has this, like, I think one of the things I love about her work specifically is that she's very, very good at like layering on like, okay, the original author's voice, and then like what the story is, like keeping in mind like the audience, and then her own voice. And none of those things kind of take over. They like exist on top of each other.
Yeah.
You could just get so much depth from reading her work, especially when you read all of her work, and you kind of see which parts of it are her.
Yeah.
I was such a huge fan of that. And I was just like, that's what we need. We need more like Pollys. We need more Antons who are kind of doing it. And Polly herself is like, she's about to release her debut novel with Fitzcarraldo later this year. I think it's this year. But I have been thinking about this for a while, that I think it's important that translators do come out more in the forefront, because they do have so much of an impact that's not really visible on what actually gets published.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely scope for that. I mean, you are also seeing like big campaigns to like put translators' names on the cover, which for a long time has not been the norm. Yeah. Even though those are the words you're reading.
Yes.
So I would like to see more Beyoncés.
It's really important because it's very quiet and understated. I feel like the industry, even like writing, poetry, translation, these are all very like quiet people, quiet industries. Like, it's not that they go unrecognized. It's just like you have to be in the know to know.
You're very insular, like poetry especially.
Yeah,
like it took me a long time to. I mean, I never would have thought that poetry was for me. Ever. Like I had this very strict image of like poetry being like an upper British upper class thing. Like and I was convinced that like only poets read other poets. I only got into it because at the community center I work at, like an actual like established poet came up to the center and was like, hey, like I used to run like a workshop here for exiled writers zoinks ago. Like, can I do something similar? Like, do you guys want to do that? And then it was like right before the pandemic started. So that meant that it was going to go online. So then as a member of staff had to be present. So that was me. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And that was Yvonne Green, who's a poet who sadly passed away now. When we first met and she like we were talking about like poetry and like writing. Then she found out that I was like, I loved writing and I was really into writing at the time. And I studied translation. I was trying to get into translation. And she was like, oh, you have to take part.
Yeah.
Like, don't just be the digital admin person on the Zoom call. Like, you have to actually take part.
Yeah.
And that's how I started writing poetry, being forced just because when you do the admin for a group like that, you have to show up every single week. And in every group, like every week we would write about 5 or 6 poems. So just doing that for like 4 or 5 years, you just naturally write like hundreds and hundreds of poems. And I think that is the thing that really transformed my writing. Because up until that point, I strictly identified as like a fiction writer, like novels and short stories. But I think the problem is like when you write for yourself for such a long time, you're very, very insular. And I think one of the things that really takes a creative to their next level is being able to kind of be in conversation with the rest of the world and not just be navel gazing and thinking about like your own world and all these fabulous ideas you have in these fabulous worlds. Because the reality is a lot of people don't really care about that. Like people want to actually see themselves in what they read from you.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing because, again, that means you're having a conversation with them. Poetry really taught me because we would write based off of prompts. And it really taught me how to, on the spot, respond to a prompt.
Yeah.
Actually, like, write something decent that responds to it while still being myself. And getting that balance right is the thing that developed my voice.
Right.
And I stumbled on that just by luck. But spending all those years developing just my voice through that. And as well, I kind of realized with poetry, I was able to access that depth that I sought in writing novels.
Yeah.
But with novels, it would take you 3/4 of the book, which is like months and months and months of hard work and tears. Whereas with poetry, you can, for me anyway, with poetry, you can like go to those depths in that little poem and then out again.
Yeah. And
like learning to hone that and be able to draw from that, that's the kind of skill that really helped me with translation. Because possibly the most important aspect of the writing work you do with translation is voice. Not just your own voice, but being able to translate voice. So voice work is so important. Aspiring writers and translators. Work on your voice.
Work on your voice.
Write poetry.
So many things that just add to your skill base. It's not, I think that's the thing with anything, is you think, okay, let me focus on this one skill. Let me hone this one skill. But in fact, having a breadth and a depth of knowledge in various things will always help you in ways you could never understand until you reach that point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. And one of the big things that really confused me, that was this big like, oh, that's how it works moment for me, was realizing that a lot of the literary world in the UK, a lot of the publishers are set up as charities. So when I was working at the community center, I was doing marketing there initially. Now I do fundraising, but back then I was like, yeah, I was just doing that anyway because I thought, okay, I quite like working in the charity sector. That's also really fulfilling.
Yeah.
If I can't get into publishing, I'm really happy to be here. And then I kind of realized that actually working in the charity sector is the same as working at a lot of these publishers that are set up as charities and arts organizations specifically. And that's kind of how I made my way over to the Poetry Translation Center. I had like this poetry background, this translation background, and this admin background doing marketing for an arts org. And it all kind of came all together. I remember like when I saw the job description for the role, I was like,
That's me.
That's me.
Oh my God.
Well, you have to hire me. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, true. On the topic of trendiness as well, just going back to, because I want your input on like the trendiness of like Japanese and Korean literature right now, because it like all of a sudden the front of Waters was like the latest Japanese books, and I was like, oh my God, like what's going on? Like Japan is cool again.
Yeah,
because Japan wasn't cool, but now Japan's cool with books.
Wait, did Japan stop being cool like in the 2010s?
Well,
it's hard to keep track of like soft power
in pop culture terms.
Okay.
Because this is the thing, we're millennials.
Yeah.
Right? So I got into K-pop at like 17.
Okay.
So it was like, I don't want to say how many, it was over
a while ago.
Oh yeah.
Like a short minute ago.
Yeah. But I remember as I was like, not like super into, I was still into it. And then everyone's like discovered BTS. There was like a point.
Oh yeah.
So what I'm saying is the pop culture kind of shifted from Japan to K-pop.
Yeah.
But recently there's been an uptick, I guess, in like interest in anime and it being seen as really cool, which I'm super mad about. I'm so mad about it. I'm really mad.
Why? Because you did your time and it wasn't
I did
cool.
my time.
And it wasn't cool back then.
It wasn't cool. I was a complete nerd. I was the person in the corridor at school learning the Haruhi Suzumiya dance.
Okay.
The Hara Hara Yukai.
Okay.
Shiteru?
No,
okay, whatever. It's fine. But yeah, that was me. So I did my time as the weirdo in the corridor, like after school. And now it's cool.
That's not fair.
It's not.
That's not fair.
And I have to live with that.
That's really sad.
I carry this with me every day. But yeah, so basically what I'm saying is Japan is cool again. And I think that's kind of spilled over into like books.
Yeah.
Because for me, like whenever I look at the types of books that, I don't know, I always put out the front, it's always like, I guess, abstract. Like,
is it the cat or the bookshop or the library or the coffee shop on
the
cover?
Yeah, those ones. But obviously everyone started with like Murakami.
Yeah. And
those are equally as like, what is happening? Like, I don't think I've ever read a novel where I know what's going on with Haruki Murakami?
Murakami, yeah.
I've never read a novel of his where I'm just like, yeah, I know what this is about.
Yeah.
What do you feel about like this uptick in Japanese literature and also just like what's being selected as well?
Yeah.
Because obviously, and we've got some examples here of like different books and different topics, different themes. But I feel like whenever there's a Japanese book in like Waterstones, it's always going to be like ethereal. Kind of abstract.
There's a very specific feeling.
Yeah, there's a very specific vibe. Odd feeling. Even a book I read recently, it was like The Memory Police. I think I told you. Yeah. And it was just like people live on an island and every day like their memory of something is wiped and then they just remove that object from the island. And it's a wonderful book, but it's always that it's never gonna be an action book. There's never gonna be a spy. It's never gonna be like two people and they get a dog and they fall in love and it's never like, it's always like a very specific, like if I had to describe it would be like, wow, that's how I would describe it. But
well, I think that the main thing is though that I think what you're kind of noticing is that the books that get translated are literary fiction. It's not genre fiction.
Okay.
It won't be like romances or crimes or thrillers. You do see more crime nowadays from Japan. But like more crime, like as in crime books, okay, from Japan. But generally what gets translated is like the kind of literary fiction, like award-winning prize kind of books.
I see.
But then the thing is, there's also a lot of books that are just cozy. And that feels like the more genre version of Japanese literature that I've seen a lot of. Like really, really like cozy, cat on the cover, cat in a bookshop, cat in a library, cat in a coffee shop, girl in a bookshop, girl in a library, girl in a coffee shop, girl jumping over a train.
Yes. No, the Nakano. Is it the Nakano?
Nakano thrift shop. Jumping. Leaping, spinning, twirling.
Kitchen, banana, Yoshimoto banana,
like all. What does it mean?
I don't know.
Like,
that's why I'm asking.
I know, but I don't fully get it either. Something I had in mind was like, okay, of the 3% of fiction that's translated,
100% of it is girl jumping.
Like, well, okay, most of it is going to be books that are from European languages like French or German. But then like in terms of outside of Europe, I suspect one of the biggest pies is Japanese. And even Japanese is like, we're getting girl jumping over the train track, girl in a library, cat in a library. Like, so I just feel like like I'm an emerging translator myself. So I'm also like trying to like pick things out and learn things and like understand things. And one of the things that really pulled me to Polly specifically is that her books are not really like that.
Yeah.
So
not to bring up butter, I haven't read it, but I know it's not like that, right?
It's not like that.
Yeah.
No.
So.
It's got crime in it.
It's got crime.
It's got crime. I mean, that's also one of the reasons I'm really interested in children's fiction. There's so few children's books translated from Japanese into English compared to like adult fiction.
Yeah.
And I feel like I feel this not just for Japanese literature, but for English literature as well. I feel like the most interesting books are always middle grade books for like ages 9 to 12.
Yeah.
Those are the best books.
You have some like sense of freedom and
and everything is wonderful and everything is like interesting and cool and there's consequences and there's consequences.
Crime. For listeners, Ecre has brought in a few books that she is translating, because just to give an example of, maybe things that, you wouldn't normally see, like we've been talking about girl jumping or whatever.
Yeah.
So the first book is called Gurira Nantoka.
Saiban no Hi.
Which means?
It literally means Guerrilla Trial Day. And this book sells itself, guys. This book is like, just to tell you a little bit about it and practice my pitching skills while I'm at it ahead of London Book Fair. Guerrilla Trial Day is about Rose. So this is a YA contemporary, which means that it's a young adult book. So about a teenage age. Contemporary meaning that it's kind of set in modern day. It's not like a fantasy book.
Yeah.
And it is about a gorilla named Rose who is in a sanctuary in Cameroon. And she learns sign language from American researchers who are in the nearby institute. And she gets these gloves that basically transcribe what she signs into speech. Like they've got speakers in the gloves and they say out loud what she is saying. So she basically has language.
Right.
She's a gorilla and she is called Rose and she has language. So she's like, you know what? It's time to go to America. So she goes to America to a zoo.
The gorilla just goes.
She goes to America because why not?
Okay,
she's a woman and she's free and she's hanging out. So she goes to America and she goes to a zoo in Ohio and she finds herself a dreamy gorilla boyfriend. And then a boy, like a 4-year-old boy, falls into the enclosure and the gorilla gets shot because the gorilla is in fact Harambe. And Rose is like, what the heck? So she sues. She takes the zoo to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Okay.
And she loses the first time. And then she joins the WWE.
That's not real. That's not the plot.
It's such a good book. When I tell you how good this book is, like obviously it's hilarious. And it's giving like, it really speaks to a lot of like books I've read in English that are like, for the same age group. Like it reminds me a lot of like Hank Green like sci-fi books.
Yeah.
But also like it's giving like Legally Blonde. And it's really funny, but it's not actually that silly, strangely enough. Like it goes in really, really deep on like US race politics. And also just like animal rights versus human rights.
Okay, well
like,
I understand.
Yeah.
But
but it goes because she meets so many different people. Because celebrities want to talk to her. They want to be friends with like the talking gorilla.
Okay. That's great.
It's great, right? Who wouldn't read that? Like, when I found out about this, I was like, hello? Hello? Like,
honestly, I hope you get to translate that.
I really hope so as well, because, like, honestly, Rose and I are very similar.
If not,
I, too, am
like,
experiencing a rise to fame as we speak.
You are Brittany. But yeah, if you don't translate that, you can just tell me the story.
I will,
in English.
Yeah. But you should also read it because it's hilarious. But yeah, so that's that book. And then this book is Koteki no Kanata, which is by Uehashi Nahoko. And she has actually had a lot of her books translated into English already. And she is like one of the most beloved children's authors in Japan. And she's like absolutely wonderful. And I was like a huge fan of her for a long time. One of the things at the moment is that currently there's a huge trend for high fantasy, like everywhere on Book Talk, like everywhere. So the fact that there's a book like this that's also fully funded and by like a super famous author, I'm like, hello, snap this up. Especially because like it's steeped in Japanese mythology with a depth that you don't like, that's not really easily accessible to an English reader. Like, I just feel like there's good range here.
No, definitely.
Surely I'll sell one of these books.
And they don't involve coffee shops.
They don't involve coffee shops. They don't. But
like, not there's anything wrong with
there's nothing wrong with it. It has a place. Clearly, it has an audience.
Of course,
like obviously, it does something useful.
Yeah.
I just feel like we can have that, and we can have lots of other things.
Exactly.
It's not a but; it's an and.
Exactly.
Languages are so cool, guys.
Languages are really
Translate
cool.
languages.
I really expect people to be listening to this like nerds.
Okay, nerds and divas.
Just
we could be both.
Outing myself as like a weeb when I was.
That's fine.
I think
we all start somewhere.
Yeah.
You know.
We
can't. We owe it to our younger selves not to betray
honestly,
our
and I don't regret any of that. Honestly, the biggest regret I have is that now it's cool. That's my regret.
Yeah, so that means you're cool now.
Am I?
Oh yeah, sorry, and you weren't cool before.
I know I was not. I don't know about now. I don't know about then. But I'm just living my life. And
I just feel like living your life is what makes you cool.
True, and that's the title of this podcast.
Yes.
So just to wrap up, because I feel like we've covered a lot. So I have 2 questions. The first one is, any advice for people wanting to get into translation or specifically the publishing industry and translation and stuff like that?
I would say show your face everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Do your time. Go to all the events. I think for me, the journey has been like 10 years of just like going to, well, maybe longer than 15 years, like going to events, all sorts of events, translation events, writing events, publishing events, so many publishing events, and just trying to understand how it works, because the really tricky thing is that it isn't explained to you. That's why these industries are constantly going on about their diversity problem, because they don't actually like tell you where the door is. They don't have to open the door. They don't even tell you where it is. Like, so it's really hard to get the lay of the land.
Yeah.
Reach out to people and ask for advice. People in the publishing industry are really, really, really nice. Like, I can name a bunch of people who like offered to read my CV for free, or like gave like this workshop for free at some place, and they all helped me so much.
Yeah.
And also, when somebody ever comes to you for help, give them your time.
Yeah.
It will, like, I'm sure it'll come back to you, but that's not the point. The point is that like you have to help each other, otherwise the world does not go round.
The world is
like
ending.
Nobody gets to where they are without a lot of help. Be prepared, I think, to be that help for somebody else.
Yeah.
And you will get helped in return. And anyone who has ever gotten anywhere has been helped.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, keep an open mind as well. And in terms of like really, really practical advice, think about working in adjacent sectors like the charity sector. Think about those other skills. So if you know that as a translator, you're constantly going to be agenting, you're constantly going to be applying for things. Okay, so think about a job in like fundraising, or think about like a sales job even. As terrifying as that sounds for an introvert, like
terrifying.
Yeah. There are skills to be learned there. And remember, like, if anything you're scared about, that probably means that there's some growth to be had there.
Yeah.
And always do the brave thing. That's what I always told myself.
Just go
be brave. Just do it.
Yeah. That's good advice. And my other question was, because I don't know like how you manage to like do everything, like poetry, translation, writing. Like, I don't know, you do a lot of things. Is there like a way that you organize yourself mentally, practically? Like, do you have any productivity workflows, productivity tips?
I'm a big fan of the wall calendar. Or like a big whiteboard. Love a whiteboard. Like, and just having the whole year ahead of me, because I'm like always scheming. I'm always thinking. And I need to know.
Scheming?
I need to know the facts. I need to know like what's coming up and like what's happening. And that helps me kind of plan ahead. And I also do a lot of lists. I think the thing is, every individual has to find like the organization tool that works for them.
Yeah.
But the important thing always is to like understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
it's the why.
Otherwise, it doesn't matter, because you'll find different like workflows to do the thing that you need to do depending on what you're doing. But if you don't even know why you're doing it,
exactly,
it will fall apart and crumble.
Yeah.
And also, I quit all the time. I don't show up to my poetry group all the time. I let people know, like, we have a system. They're independent now, but like, you know, if I physically can't do something, then I won't do it. I'll rest.
That's good.
Like,
that's a great productivity tip.
I think there's a big feeling of like, oh, you have to like keep pushing if you want to work hard. But I'm like, no,
absolutely not.
I would rather sit horizontal, play video games. And sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
And by sometimes I don't mean like once a week because your willpower was low. I mean, sometimes you need to spend months just doing that and nothing else.
Yeah.
And you have to just be honest with yourself about why you want to rest.
Yeah. And then why you want to get up and start again.
Yeah.
It's a great tip. Thank you. What have you discovered about yourself through this creative journey?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What have I discovered about myself?
If you could summarize it.
Okay, I have to figure out what I discovered about myself and summarize it.
Yeah.
That
you're Brittany?
I think I am Brittany. I'm like literally the Brittany of translation. And if I'm not now, I surely will be.
Yeah, okay.
I couldn't say that with a straight face. I was like really prepared to commit, but I think I've learned to listen to myself. Received really a lot of help, a lot of like really good advice from different people. But the thing that whenever I've had lots of conflicting advice or just thoughts about something, going my way has always been the right way.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of goes back logically to the fact that I know my purpose. Like, I know why I'm doing this. Like, I'm not going to be bogged down in the details of should I translate from this or that, or should I do this or that? Like, no. The point is to help build a more empathetic world, to try to leave something good for the next generation.
Yeah.
And to be proud of the life that I've lived, but by being, but by utilizing the skills that I actually have. Does that just mean self-acceptance?
Ultimately, yes.
Great.
And so for the final question, what are your like next steps?
So this is being filmed before London Book Fair. So my next steps are basically to like set up those meetings with editors and pitch the books. And even if not at London Book Fair, because I live in London, I'll just keep trying to pitch to them generally. Yeah. And I will probably see about doing some more sample work, essentially. Because the next challenge is like actually getting your first book contract. And then Anton Hurd, the Beyonce of translation, has this excellent article called The Emerging Translator's Valley of Death. Okay. Which is that there's a lot of support to get your first book out there. The problem is the second book. Yeah. Like I remember like on, I think it was International Translators Day, like I met a translator who did the program a few years before me, and she was giving me advice. She was so lovely, and she was like, the first book is fine. Forget the first book is fine. It's the second book.
Oh my God.
It's the second book. Like if you don't have the second book, like that's what's really hard to get. And then I met her again at a prize ceremony like a few months later, and she was like, oh yeah, I've got the third book and the fourth book. And I was like, okay. So I just have to get through the Valley of Death.
Yeah.
But you see, I have 2 books.
You do have 2 books.
So that's the hill, that's the top, and that's the valley. So actually, I won't have a valley of death. Is that how it works?
I don't know. Did you get to the top of the mountain and then fall in the valley? I have no idea.
Oh my gosh.
Think about it.
At the bottom of the mountain is
I believe so. But it's your mountain. You get to decide.
But it's a mountain range, and I will keep climbing once I get to the bottom of the valley.
And that's where we're going to end this podcast. So, thank you so much for being here. This has been crazy good.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
This was really fun. A great way to kick off season 2 of the Pensive Pod. So yeah, where can people find you and your work? I mean, you're not very social media-y, so anything you want to pitch, just pitch it.
Cool. My social media account as we speak, like as of recording, is a photo of me in sunglasses, like peering over the edge. Like I'm like literally marking myself as someone who's lurking, and I have no post. But now I probably am gonna emerge from the shadows. And I may start posting. Tell me what to post if anybody has advice. Like, I don't know what people want from me. Like, if you want to know more about like how the translator life, let me know. I'll figure that out. I'm on Instagram.
I'll link everything.
Ecre.
Yeah,
just my name over and over again.
I'll link everything.
Thank you. And I have a website as well for publishers to contact me if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you again. And Thanks for listening to all you wonderful viewers and listeners. And if you want more from the Pensive podcast, obviously subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And we have a Substack, which I am doing my best to regularly update. But please, I think the word is follow. Maybe subscribe. Maybe, I don't know. You click the button that lets you know when I've written something. And I write articles about creativity, productivity, and just anything fun that pops into my brain. And yeah, please keep up with all of Pensive stuff. It's going to be picking up. I'm really excited for this year.
I was going to say it's a really good newsletter.
Oh, yeah.
Can confirm.
Oh, no, really it is a good newsletter. I really enjoy writing it. Yeah, but we do also have Instagram, and I'm staying off the TikTok app, I believe. Woo. I don't want that anymore. Anyway, so that's it from me. That's it from us. So thanks for joining us, and see you in the next one. Bye.